Namaste. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to my weekend chat. And today I will share with you a few things before we get into the night cards, the knights of the earth-centric decks I have been talking about over the past few months, the Mythologia, Fennica, and Margaret Peterson, and the Greenwood Tarot. And kind of exciting, the Greenwood Tarot new edition is getting closer and closer. So I look forward to having that in hand. Last week, I shared with you my beginning of the journey of the Hallow Quest. And I have a lot of bits and pieces that I want to put together for you and share parts of my journey along the way. One of you lovely people made a suggestion and said, and it was just such a lovely comment, and said that you had recorded the meditations in the Hallow Quest, but I don't have your lovely voice, Sadhana. So what I have decided I'm going to do is to record the meditations for the Hallow Quest. And as I shared with you, I'm going to be beginning with Autumn, which is the Suit of Cups. So I will start recording the meditations as I go through and put those in a playlist for members only. So another project for me, but also it's really exciting. I've done quite a bit since I did that first video for you, so I will do an update soon. I am very busy. I have a job Monday to Friday, and I am up at before 6, and when I'm home, I am very tired, so I will not be producing a lot of content midweek right now until I get used to this new routine. It's really trying on me, and many of you know that I work with special education students, and I'm getting to know a whole new group of people and little tiny humans, and it's exhausting. So thank you for your patience until I get back into the swing of things and am able to produce content during the week. Yeah. Thank you, Mary Beth, and hello, welcome to you. Part of my journey, or part of my Saturday chats, is to share with you new decks. And one thing I haven't been doing for the past couple years is buying a lot of decks. And I do have a new one to share with you today, and I will do a reading for the collective for the full moon. And that is with this new deck to me, which is Magical Nature Tarot. It was recommended by one of you, and it is a lovely sort of textured collage deck. It reminds me a little bit of some children's books. I'm trying to think of the author, Barbara. Her first name is Barbara for sure. And she creates sort of layered clay images in her children's books, and they're just beautiful. I remember there was one with a cow. So I'm going to do the reading with that deck today, and I will do a full walkthrough and review of that over the next couple of weeks. My series that was inspired by Nova, decks that I recommend. I have pretty much finished that series. There is one video left to do, and that is astrological decks I recommend for astrology. And I will do that. I will do it in my own way because I'm not an astrologer, and I use astrology in a particular way. So I will finish off that series. So that's coming up. I will continue with the Arthurian series. That is still in the plan, and the rest right now is a big unknown. So, and I do plan to be here on the weekends at 11 or 12 Pacific on Saturdays. That is the plan. But like I said, lots going on for me here. So welcome to all of you. I also had a complete reset of all my internet equipment yesterday, which was a bit unnerving, but I managed to get going for today. And I thought, just to get grounded here, I would start with reading this poem. We are remembering. Look at the beautiful artwork by Bernice Davidson. And the art's called Many Hands. The poem is called We Are Remembering. The landscapes of our bodies are beginning to sing the wild song of the living earth. She is calling us home. Home to the shelter of the mother tree, teaching us to stand in her magnificence, to spread our arms wide and reach for the hands of our sisters, as we grow a forest of the feminine to restore balance to our planet and honor the sacredness of life. And I was thinking about this picture and this first line, the landscape of our bodies. I was thinking about how healing the opportunity is in Virgo season with this body connection. And I hope that we can all come into relationship, right relationship, balanced and peaceful relationship with our bodies, our body, mind, spirit connection, and acknowledge how important that is, disassociating from the landscape of this temple that we possess can be so, I don't know, it's not great, it's not good, it's not good for us. So let's take time every day to land and to ground and to exhale and to be with this place, this beautiful temple that we inhabit. We have moved in to the energy of the full moon, and the moon is in Pisces. It switched from Aquarius to Pisces this morning. And so I would like to do a reading for the collective and just acknowledge this time of openings and awakenings and possibilities for us all. May we be inspired to connect with the moon, perhaps sit in the fullness of the moon this evening, and depending on where you are in the planet and what's going on in the sky, the visibility and so forth, the way we all connect with that may be a little bit different. But whether or not she is visible, that energy is ever present and already here with us now, and allow this luminosity to fill and inspire and encourage. The moon is in Pisces, and this is a journey that requires some bravery and willingness to connect with our emotional, spiritual body. And that disconnect I was speaking of often comes from the belief that the mental and material aspects of our journey is so much more important. However, it is not. Yeah. All right. Ooh, look at this beautiful meditation here. This really appeals to me. Look at this beautiful card, two. So this is a lovely card of new beginnings. If you're reading zodiacally, this is the first decan of Aries, which kind of fits in perfect here. This is an opportunity to reflect upon where it is indeed we feel and desire with our heart of hearts, connecting our physical body well grounded to our emotions, the clarity of our mind, seeing from an internal gaze where it is our next step forward may be. So I invite you all to kind of embrace this picture here and know that we don't necessarily need to be looking out the window and looking through the internet and different places. If we do take the time to pause and make space for this kind of situation, you don't have to be cross-legged, you don't have to be on the floor. We just need space and quiet and time alone. And I think time alone is absolutely critical to understanding the openings and the opportunities that this lunar eclipse and the full moon energy in generally provides for us. We have here the Emperor and these two cards deeply connected astrologically. The Emperor, the Ram looking toward the Two of Wands, acknowledging the ladder, the steps ahead, the climb. That's a beautiful lyrics to that song, The Climb. And we can take that one rung at a time. And for you, it may be rising up. For others, it may be a bridge over a chasm. But this is a time for knowing that indeed we can take those steps forward. But in order to do so, there will be an emotional, and sometimes that can be quite physical in our bodies, right? A release that is absolutely required. Part of these crossing of bridges and climbing of ladders is moving through something that it hurts, it's quite difficult to do. Nobody ever said that this journey was going to be easy. And so sit with this Five of Cups here and know that you will feel a lot lighter. And not only is it safer to cross the bridge and climb the ladder when we are feeling a little bit lighter and more grounded and balanced, but it's also long-term going to help to create this balance that we see in the Two of Wands. Twos as a place of harmony. Synchronistically, I feel like these Aries cards really acknowledge the ecliptic energy and indeed are asking us to be brave enough to do that. And then when we feel and are able to find the space to do this, and this is work. This is deep work. This is a card of Scorpio. It is a decan of Mars. It's one of the hardest hitting cards in the tarot that gets hit 3 times by the planet Mars, decanically, zodiacally, and sephirically. And feels very, like if there was a card that should have an eclipse on it, it would be this card. I just feel like in Golden Dawn decks in general, this is an less than exhilarating card, and it's one that is just full of potential transformation and change. So if you are willing, and if you are brave enough, and if you have time to make space to listen for that opening, to see that opening, and this is often most possible in our dreamscape. So set that intention as you go to bed tonight to allow the mystery and the message of the portal of the upcoming lunar eclipse to reveal itself. And also don't forget to ask that you remember it when you wake up. or have a piece of paper and pen beside you so that when you do stir, you can immediately turn over and write down what you do remember, because often we don't remember our dreams. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Lovely to have you here. Okay. Now, I have another synchronicity. Well, there's so many synchronicities. Oh my goodness. Life is just full of mystery and magic, isn't it? I've really been enjoying this journey. So these cards are from the Mythologia Fennica tarot. And this journey, this Saturday journey that I've been comparing Mythologia Fennica cards with Greenwood and Margaret Peterson, has been really kind of challenging for me. And yet, what began as a kind of deep dive into the relationship between air and fire, that's sort of why I started this, has morphed into, I don't know, a deeper appreciation of the myth of this particular deck. And I've found myself in a place where I am okay with letting a deck do its own thing. Not every tarot deck has to fit into a particular box. And I've said many times that when we choose a deck from our library, or when we take a deck off our stand, we always choose the right one. Somehow, some way, it seems to deliver just the perfect message. And today, as I go about discussing the Knights, in preparing for this, I don't want to force associations. So hi Patricia, what do I know about the Knights? Well, on the Tree of Life, their home is in Tiferet, in the 6th Sephira, in the center of the Tree of Life. I know that through Golden Dawn associations, chakra associations, some other schools of thought, that the Knights are the fruit of the kings and the queens. And the kings and queens, if you associate them with fire and water, then this is air. The Knights are air, and there's this beautiful sort of representation here of the mother and the father in the place of union in the 6th Sephira and in the heart chakra, in the chakra of Anahat. And I don't know, I feel like the Knights, we don't, in general, give them the space of the magnificence of all that they represent. We often, sorry, doggy's very close, sleeping here. We often think of them as impulsive and reactive. Yes, they are journeyers. And if you think of the metaphor of the knight as one on the quest, that's a beautiful way to look at these cards. And yeah, so let's just dive into this. And I'm going to start with the Knight of Cups. We were on the Suit of Cups, and I'm going to start with that one and then just kind of try to weave this together for you. I don't know if you remember. I feel like I've had so many gaps in these discussions. So the Page of Cups in this suit was a mermaid. And the Knight of Cups in this suit is a merman. And these Haltia, these spirits, inhabit the lakes and the rivers. And there's something quite haunting about the energy of this particular card. And here is the Sun of Cups from the Margaret Peterson. also looks a bit haunting. You can see this mask and different parts of maybe an effigy on the ground. The sun is swimming in the water here. And I find quite oddly, the Knight of Cups in the Greenwood Tarot is the salmon, which I would associate more with a feminine energy. However, if we're looking at this particular knight as a journeyer, then indeed the salmon fits into that box. And in both of these decks, the knight is an energy of movement. If you associate this particular court card with Pisces, the mutable water sign, then that also makes sense. The energy of Pisces is not easy, and it can be deep and mysterious, but it can also be an evolution from our Scorpio journey, and we find ourselves closer back to the surface, maybe even emerging and on our way. However, the Vetahinen, these particular haltia from Mythologia Fennica, kind of goes off in its own direction. And I'm going to share a little bit of the writings of Susanna Salo, as I have been doing. Now, I do have so what I was saying earlier about letting a deck be its own thing and not forcing it to fit into any particular pattern, I think that's really important. I, unfortunately, have observed in this deck that, well, first of all, this is in translation. And in some cases, the translation is quite good, and other times it's quite awkward. So you'll feel, especially those of you that are tuned into language, you'll feel the force of the grammar. So the grammar is probably different in Finnish, and so the translation in English is slightly awkward. And we usually begin with the fairy tale. We begin with the myth. And often there are multiple myths that are shared. And then in all of these cards, there is a section that is the conclusion. And I find there's often a disconnect with the myth and the conclusion. Sometimes the writer tries to force the myth into what we expect from more standard type tarot cards, this card to represent. And in this case, there is some mention of the romanticism of the Knight of Cups, but there's something else that I want to touch on here today. And that is the considering this as a entity that moves beneath the water, that stirs the water. And I want you to think of your favorite Knight of Cups card. I'm going to mark that in case I come back to it. I'm going to try to just be in my own space here today. So these particular haltia, these water spirits, move the energy beneath the lakes, within our subconscious. They stir the energy. So think of the Knight of Cups. I think of one of my favorites, more standard ones from the Slow Tarot. He's looking back at a castle and he's riding a hippocampus, and it's a brilliant card. And what is the Knight of Cups but not stirring the waters, stirring our energy, asking us to be brave enough and bold enough to feel and to move energy. And this makes me think of some of the warnings that I give when people come for energy healing, especially, if they've got something big going on, cancer, or they're recovering from a car accident, or some other deep trauma that they're ready to release. And the truth is that when we start to stir up this stuff, you can feel a whole lot worse before you start to feel better. Yeah. And I just felt that with the full moon in Pisces. I don't know if I mentioned it. Sorry, my brain is kind of all over the place today. That this was really an interesting energy to think about in terms of where you are and your relationship with the moon in Pisces. And maybe thinking about the Knight of Cups in a different way, and that his quest, his or their quest for love, their quest for, and if you think of love, let me get a Knight of Cups out here for us. If you think of the quest for love, the quest for relationship, the quest for however you see the Knight of Cups, and why it tends to be a romanticized card. What if this particular knight is simply allowing the waters to begin to flow so that we can feel again? In a way, the Knight of Cups is inviting us to break something open. And I don't know if you feel this. Like, I feel we can play with this a lot more than we tend to do when we look at a card that looks an awful lot like this. Susanna says, hopefully I'm in the right place. The water Haltia's battle symbolize the conflicts between your own aspects. This could be compared to fighting with one's shadow. Every person has their own shadow, the subliminal side that nevertheless controls how we behave. Vetehinen urges you to get to know your dark side and accept all your different aspects. Well, this sounds very Scorpio, but I think none of this is resolved when we get into Pisces and this journey through Pisces. It's really important that we allow this energy to continue to flow. Ooh, I like that, Dee. Welcome to you. All right, let's turn to the lovely words of Margaret Peterson, and see what we can glean from her description of this one. I find, one of my pet peeves is how I know that coins is the first suit in this deck, but other than that, I get mixed up with what order these are presented in. Okay, Son of Water. My mother gave me the gift of sensitivity. My father taught me the languages of water. And my sister, pure as a lotus blossom, gave me tenderness. And I love how she builds connection among all of the quartz. I think it's important that there is this understanding of the relationship among the quartz. Like I was saying, that the knights are the product of the union of the mother and the father. I drink and drink, but no water can quench my thirst. I am familiar with the many reflections on my skin. Sometimes I see my father, but I forgot where my mother lives. I am floating upon the waters of self-remembering, like the leaf of a flower. So why this lack of memory? What is it about this environment that can allow us to lose touch with where we are? And maybe it has to do with a lack of grounding. In the darkness of night, I can feel the sea bottom and the architecture of my thoughts become blurred. During the day, the sharp knife of my mind has separated me. I feel sad and try to hide it. Dusk brings me peace. So there's all these emotions and experiences that are flowing. This is a rather unstable description. Control sleeps, and I dare to jump through the reflections. I allow myself to fall. My armor becomes soft and scaly. Following the tracks of thousands of tiny air bubbles, I sink down to the bottom, melting into that which awaits me. And I just had this other, I like that, Dee. He longs for a homecoming and family. I don't think I've studied this deck. I have a series on my channel where I do a deep dive into this deck. But in one way, in this description, I feel like this knight who's swimming here will come down into this armor and then rise and be stronger. But in another way, I feel like the Knight of Cups or the Son of Cups is free of this armor. And there is a freedom of movement and a freedom of spirit that this particular knight cannot be contained within. The myth that is in this book talks about how there is conflict, can be conflict between the lakes and where the river meets the lakes, and when the water is stirred up, what that might represent. But more than anything, I feel, and there's almost like a sadness to this card in that this court takes on the burden of this process on our behalf. And when this card arises in a reading, it's maybe a lot more potent than we have, or I have acknowledged in the past. The salmon takes a long journey back home to where they were born, and many of them don't make the return trip. They lay their eggs and their life ends at the place that they were born. And their responsibility is the continuation of life through the journey up the river. So maybe in part this is, in general, our journey up the river, our journey against the current. Do we have the strength to do that? And I kind of like the knights as the element of air, and mixing air and water, and that feels like a real sort of flow of energy. Lovely reflections, Dee. Thank you. And so think about this in terms of moving into, we're already in the energy of the Pisces full moon, how you can bravely and with your internal strength, navigate these waters, because these are powerful places of transformation. The other night that we have not looked at is the Knight of Pentacles, and I will briefly share with you the other two as well. And in the Mythologia Fennica, this is the bear. And beautiful story. I should probably read you Susanna's words, but the myth is that the bear literally comes to earth from the constellation of the Great Bear. And in the Wildwood Tarot, we're looking at the wolf. And in the Margaret Peterson Tarot, we have a grounded figure. You can see some sort of a bronze gong in the background. You might see something completely different. And here the Knight of Coins is sitting in a yogic posture called Ardha Matsyendrasana, which is a seated twisting pose. Now this is, did you know that, gosh, I hope I have it handy. Yes, I do. Okay. So interesting. Now this is a very, it's a wonderful twist if you can get into this pose. And it is great preparation for meditation. Kind of, when you wring a wet cloth and then you release it, it's ready to drink in whatever information is received. In the Crowley deck, the pose is displayed, sort of, in the Prince of Wands, and this is Crowley's card, and he actually wrote a book, a yogic book. It's kind of hard for me to read. It's, sorry for the pause here. While I want to respect his work in the practice of yoga, there's aspects that just don't feel deeply grounded to me. But this was a particular posture that he adopted prior to meditation, somewhat similar to Ardha Matsyendrasana that we see in the Margaret Peterson Tarot. So let's start with that, and then we'll go back to bear. My mother gave me a sense of security and knowledge of growth processes. My father showed me how to add structure to my strength. My sister initiated me into the laws of metamorphosis. Through being aware of old patterns, I avoided the habit of senseless cycles. I have taken off the armor of my forefathers, much like that knight, the son of water did too. I have begun to loosen up the hardness of my muscles. Using the way of yogic wisdom, I surrender to my body. My stereotypical world of ideas begins to dissolve. New connections are made at the sacred bone at the end of my spine. Following the way of this power, I feel the soft and the weak. My boundaries are shifting. With respect and awareness, I open myself towards new encounters. And this is a really important yogic principle, and I wonder if we can apply this in any way to the Knight of Stones or to the bear. And that is, in order, like in this posture, like I said, you twist up, you get everything really, really tight, and then you release so you can soften into your meditation. We need to find strength and softness at the same time. We can't just be hard or just be soft. We need to, in order to find the balance, we need to be both. And the Son of Pentacles, who is often drawn as the slow one, the one who takes his time, the one who's connected to the earth. He is the farmer. He's the one that's walking rather than riding the motorcycle. Is one who observes well and sees a big picture and is definitely connected to the earth below, not racing ahead like the son of air or the son of fire. And so in this deck we have the great bear, Ursa, who descends from Ursa Major. Just give me one moment here. My many resources on the table, and I'll share this with you. Yes, and this is a mystery that is the connection between these two suits is so powerful in many decks, and I think at a certain level there is almost a universal conversation going on between the suit of air and the suit of water. These very flowy, mobile energies. And this is from Susanna Sallow. Bear was born in heaven, next to the moon and the sun, at the bosom of Ursa Major, from whence it was lowered down to earth with silver chains in a golden basket. According to fable, the bear and a human woman once had a relationship, and the bear folk of the forest Finns was born from this union. Bear was considered to be an ancestor and a brother because of its human-like physique. The most skilled witches could take on the bear's form to make a bear attack the cattle of their enemy. In Kalevala, the shards of the shattered Sampo wash up in Kalevala, and the envious Louhi sends a bear to attack Kalevala in retaliation. And this, I think this is true not only in Finnish, I know in other languages as well too, but here she writes, the Finnish and Karelian languages have over 200 words for bear, which is a sign of deep reverence toward this king of the forest. The bear was always referred to with some euphemism, for it was believed that uttering its true name would summon it. Speak of the devil, as the saying goes. Bear, Karhu, was actually a euphemism which was derived from its rough fur. Its true name was Oto, and it was also known as honeypaw and the apple of the forest, for example. And so this brave and strong king of the forest, who can move very quickly. Is this a skull? I wonder if that's a skull of a bear up there. Look at the reflection here. Under the ground and above. As above, so below. Tends to move with purpose and some slowness, but also has the ability to move quickly. And when I think of this integration of the Son of Pentacles and the importance of strength and softness, I think there's a real important lesson here. And I know she writes about hibernation and the lessons of hibernation. And I think this is generally true of the nights, in that in our dreams and in our meditations, there is so much opportunity for growth and lesson. And where I want to tie this in is of the idea of knights as not only journeyers, but questers, sacred questers. The knight was on a journey to fulfill a sacred quest. And it's these sacred quests in our dream temples or in our meditations that can have or create profound shifts in our waking moments. And so it feels like there's quite a connection here between, I don't know, the purpose of the movement of the Knight of Cups and the way that the bear responds upon the earth, or in general, the Knight of Pentacles. Look at this, how we have almost an energy of a more terrorizing wolf below the ground, underground, and the wolf that appears that we know well above ground. This reminds me a little bit of the energy of jaguar in shamanic studies. And in a way, there is in both of these cards, there's a tracking quality. That when we are mindful and we use our pads and we walk with intention and connection, we have this ability to track our past, to track our shadow, to understand who we are and what we stand for. And I wonder if these sacred quests of the knights, if underneath it all, that is what indeed we are tracking and what we are hoping to find and understand. So none of this is scripted. This is just sadhana, reflecting. Yeah, I like what you write here because, in the tarot, we often think of the suit of swords as the most painful suit. But I've kind of been in this for a while, and there is something so deep and profound and challenging in the suit of cups that, it's haunting. And I feel that on so many levels, it is extremely challenging for us. Is this Amy? I'm just sort of looking at your picture. No, it's not. It's not Amy. I know that a lot of clients and students fear wandering into the topics of and the waters of the suit of cups. And if you work with me and we are working with the energy of water, we're going to be wandering through the sacral chakra. We're going to be talking about connections in relationships with all kinds of feelings and learning to cultivate opposite feelings. We're going to talk about all of the organs and the body parts and the processes of those organs and body parts that are connected around that area. And it's really difficult. And I think often we think of feelings, of love, but the energy of the sacral chakra and the energy of the heart chakra are quite different. Once we evolve through the solar plexus to the Anahat chakra, to the heart chakra, we have found more universal love and compassion. And the wanderings through the water are much more challenging. Loving these. Okay. Earthly being is ours. The Knight of Earth is our incarnate being. We choose this life, and our life is sacred. And, let's hope that we truly get that, understand that, and find ways to connect with that. I am extremely aware of things always heading to the end. Is this a reason why the cards of Pisces, 8, 9, 10 of Cups, perhaps Knight of Cups, Moon card, we find or we hear readers oversimplifying because endings present so much challenge for many people. Lovely. Completion, closure, and community of souls. And just think about the 10 of Cups in terms of that as the final card of Pisces. So in the Mythologia Fennica, we have beings who move with great will and spirit in their environment. And I think you could say that all of these beings invoke or encourage change. They encourage movement. They encourage transformation. And what Mythologia Fennica is doing with this particular court, I think is, like I said, I think you have to read between the lines, and in the brief studying that I've been doing of this deck is to try to weave together the sort of the whole feeling, because there is the aspect of the myth in each of these cards. And I think there may be a lesson in the myth that connects to your reading. So it certainly is worthwhile reading the myth in the book, and then you get to know the vocabulary and get familiarity with some of the names. And as I shared with you in a few of the episodes, I was trying to link together the major arcana with some of the minors and the way the stories weave together. And this is one of the reasons I wanted to do all of the pages and all of the nights, is so we could begin to see the patterns of this particular deck, and not just see it as disjointed. It's not just a card, not just a deck of 78 separate myths. This is about learning some new vocabulary. It is about building connections among the suits and appreciating the, how these suits weave together. And this is really kind of beautiful, the way that all of these creatures invite change, and is a quest not that. A quest is about change. A quest is about inviting movement. And if you think about the bravery of the knights, the qualities of a knight, the training of a knight, when these cards appear in a reading, there's a certain courageousness that is being asked of us. And I would like to think that we take the best from our mother and the best from our father and use those strengths on our journey forward. And if you choose a shamanic type method in doing that, whether it's through a shamanic journey or another way that you may connect with a spirit animal, I think that's a lovely way to find support in... Oh, that's right. Oh my goodness. Yes, I knew that. You did have a little bit of a longer name on one of your comments. That's why I was thrown off. What was I going to say? If you choose your spirit animal, if you choose your another entity for support, it can also provide protection and give you more courage to move in a way that you may not move in uncovering your path. Yeah. So how do you and how might you find strength with, in particular, the Knight of Cups through this portal of the present lunar eclipse? Could I also say that I think some writing will also, like getting clear about this, we can't be all scattered in our feelings and our movement. There needs to be a bit of a container, like water does need a container to be effective. So how about if we contain that with intention? Oh, and there's D, same word. We contain and hold every element, each of us in different degrees. We complement one another and need the other to blossom. It's beautiful. Okay. If you haven't worked with full moon, sorry, if you haven't worked with moon energy before, I do have a brief offering on my website, and it does give some tools and strategies for working with intention and with the moon, in particular the new moon. But I think it would be really useful for honing in intention in working with the powerful energy of the eclipse as well too. So thank you. Thank you all for your contributions today. And we will, I will share with you the queens of these decks next week, particularly the Queen of Cups. And I think that is a court to be, it's another one that is a little intimidating. And was it Vicky? Yeah, Soul Visions said, this suit is, it's, think of the Scorpio journey. I think that's one of the best ways to think about the depths of this one. And it's through the courage of exploring these depths that we can begin to make transformations on the surface. And so I wish you bravery. And let me go back to the cards from earlier. If you missed it, I did a reading for the collective at the top of the hour. And the first card that was drawn was this beautiful Two of Wands. And so I really suggest making space like this. And as I mentioned, it need not be seated in a cross-legged pose, but finding space and place and time for quiet to gather your thoughts and gather your intentions as you move through this strong energy. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. And I wish you a lovely rest of your day and your weekend. Namaste. See you next weekend.